Hello and welcome to the Park Life Podcast. My name is Mike. I'm a travel planner that specializes in all things Disney. This is episode 32 of the Park Life Podcast. And today we're going to talk about annual passes at Walt Disney World. We'll cover the different pass types, what's provided with each pass, how much they cost, and who gets availability to each of the passes. That's all dependent upon where you live, and we'll get into that here shortly. In addition, we will also cover the financial aspect, whether it makes sense to purchase an annual pass versus just paying for park tickets. And I'll have some examples for that as well. Let's start with the annual passes themselves. There are four different types that are available to Florida residents. So if you live inside of the state of Florida, these are all available to you. The first one is called the Pixie Pass. It is $469 plus tax. Florida residents, you can make a down payment and make monthly payments. A $99 deposit and $34 per month for 12-month payments will cover your Pixie Pass. Pretty reasonable. Now, here's what you get with the Pixie Pass. First, you can make park reservations for up to 3 at a time. That's right. If you're an annual pass holder, you do have to make park reservations. So a Pixie Pass guest can make 3 reservations. And then once you go into the park for your first of those 3, you have a new one open up available to make in the future. The Pixie Pass is good for most weekdays. Weekends are not available. They're part of the blockouts. You also have blockouts on all holidays and peak season times. You do get up to 20% off on some dining locations, as well as merchandise in the stores, and parking is included, which I think is a big bonus. Parking at the parks today, a standard spot is $30 per day. So do the math. If you go about 15 or 16 days worth, just the parking alone has covered your park pass. You also get Park Hopper included, which is another bonus that I think makes the park pass very valuable. Now, if you're saying to yourself, well, I want to go more than just weekdays, your next park pass is the Pirate Pass. This one is $829 plus tax. Again, a $99 deposit. And in this one, $66 per month payments for 12 months gets you that Pirate Pass. With the Pirate Pass, you can hold up to 4 park reservations at a time, so you get one extra one. This pass includes most days. However, there are blockouts on peak periods as well as holidays. So this pass does open up your weekends, which is very beneficial. If you want to go to the next level, it's the Sorcerer's Pass. This one is $1,079 plus tax. Again, for Florida residents, you can pay a $99 deposit, and this pass is $88 per month for 12 months. You can hold up to 5 reservations at a time with this pass. You still get your 20% off on most dining as well as merchandise. You get your parking included as well. And if I didn't mention it, all of the annual passes do include Park Hopper, another added bonus. If you want the all in, no blockout date pass, that's the Incredi Pass. It is $1,549 plus tax. For Florida residents, a $99 deposit plus $130 per month for 12 months. You can again hold up to 5 reservations. This pass does also include the 20% off dining and merchandise, and it includes parking as well as the Park Hopper Pass. You can go 365 days out of the year with the Incredi Pass. There are no blockouts. So, for our Florida friends, you live inside the state of Florida, those are your 4 options. You can take a look at those and determine what makes most sense financially, as well as what makes most sense for your availability to go to the parks. If you work Monday through Friday every day of the week, maybe the Pixie Pass does not make very good sense to you if you can't go on the weekends, for instance. All right, if you live outside of the state of Florida, there are 2 possible options for you. The first is the all-encompassing Incredi Pass, again $1549 plus tax. 365-day access to the parks with that pass, 20% off dining and merchandise, free parking, as well as the Park Hopper feature. And you can hold up to 5 reservations at a time. If you live outside of the state of Florida and you're a DVC member, Disney Vacation Club member, you can also purchase the Sorcerer Pass. That one is 1,079 plus tax. That one includes most park days except for holiday periods. So think about Thanksgiving weekend, holiday periods like the last 2 weeks of the year around Christmas and New Year's. All of those would be blocked out, but the rest of the year you would be able to get into the parks. Now, if you live outside of the state of Florida and you're not a DVC member, then the only park option you have is the Incredipass, 1,549 plus tax. 5 park reservations at a time you can hold. You get the 20% off, you get the free parking, and the park hopper pass included. Now, if you're DVC outside of the state of Florida, or you just live outside of the state of Florida and you're non DVC and you have to purchase the Incredipass, there is no deposit and monthly payment options. Those of us that live outside of the state of Florida, you will have to pay the full price upfront for the pass. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your finances. Now, let's use a quick example. I live outside of the state of Florida. I'm going to purchase a pass, and let's say I'm going to buy it today. And for argument's sake, let's say today's April 1st. The park pass does not start its 1 year availability to me until the first time I badge in or scan into one of the 4 Walt Disney World parks. So if I purchase it on April 1st, but let's say I don't go to the park until June 1st, and that's the first time I enter the park with the annual pass, my 12-month period of that pass will begin on June 1st and would end on May 31st of 2026. So keep that in mind. It does not start on the purchase date. It starts on the first day you enter the park. So a lot of numbers to factor in and a lot of things to consider as to whether or not an annual pass makes sense to you and your family. And as I mentioned your family, I should mention those prices that I rattled off. Florida residents 469, 829, 1079 or 1549 plus tax. That's for one pass. So if you're a family of 3, family of 5, factor that in. But is an annual pass a good investment for you? And really, the only way, simply from a numbers perspective, that you can determine that is to do some price comparisons. Now, I'm going to set aside a resort cost because that's going to be the same whether you're staying on property with an annual pass or you're staying on property with date based tickets. Now, you may get some different promotional room rate pricing if you're an annual pass holder throughout the year that factors in, but we want to keep that separate from the equation here because we're really talking about, does it make sense to buy the annual pass versus just paying for uh, park tickets? So I've done a couple of different examples here, a few actually. Um, Annual pass holder, I'm outside of the state of Florida, so my cost is $1,650. I'm going to round up an extra 31 cents to get us to $1,650. If I were to take 2 separate trips, each one of them having a 5-day park hopper pass, and I need to include the park hopper in my date-based ticket purchase so that it's an equivalent example to what the annual pass offers me. A 5-day park hopper pass today with tax cost about $785. If I were to take 2 trips of 5-day park hopper passes on each trip, that's $1,570. Now, let's assume I'm staying off property. I now have to pay to park. I'm going there for 2 different trips, 5 days each, so that's 10 parking days. That's $300. So I'm now at 1,870. In this example, buying the annual pass from a numbers perspective only would make sense, and it would be a good investment for me to make. Now let's do another example. What if I can only go one time, but I'm going to make it a longer trip? So I do a 10-day park hopper pass. For an individual, a 10-day park hopper pass will run with tax about $977. Again, we're going to consider that I'm staying off property, so I have to pay to park. 10 days, $300. My total would be $1,277. In this case, paying for the tickets and parking would be cheaper than if I bought the annual pass. Now, what if I'm a weekend warrior, for instance? I'm going to go a few different times, but not any long stays. So if I were to do a 3-day park hopper pass, that's about $614. And if I do the math, and let's say I go 3 different times, that's going to be $1,842. Forget about parking. I've already paid more than what the annual pass would be. So in that scenario, if I'm going to go multiple times, even if they're short stays, in my example, 3 days, the annual pass makes a lot more sense financially. Just looking at numbers on purchase of park tickets versus annual pass. But I think there's more that goes into that decision of whether the annual pass makes sense or not. I know a lot of people that did this math and said, hey, it's a better deal for me to buy the annual pass than it is for me to go to Disney World twice for 5 days each with the park hopper, my first example. And so they buy the annual pass and they book that first trip and they go, but they pay for housing, whether that's at a Disney resort or a Disney Good Neighbor hotel or a hotel outside of the Disney bubble. And they got to pay for food. And if they're driving down, they got to pay for gas. If they're flying down, they got to pay for airfare. And all of a sudden, they realize that that 1 5 day trip um, is pretty expensive when you add in those other factors. So they come home and they realize, gosh, I have to go again to make my annual pass worth the investment. So they go again, but they may not be financially in a position where they should be spending the money to go a second time. But they go because they need to feel good about that annual investment they made on the pass. After that year's up, they let their annual pass expire and they don't renew it because financially they just couldn't afford to make multiple trips to Disney. Let's be honest, airfare is not cheap. Driving, if you're an 8 hour, 10 hour drive away, you pay for gas, you're spending a day driving there, a day driving home. All of those things are part of the factoring into whether an annual pass makes sense or not. Now, I am by no means saying annual pass is something you shouldn't consider, but you need to look at all factors. And I've said this before, probably on some of the live travel chats that we do. But I always look at annual passes, and I don't mean just Disney. It could be to my zoo in my hometown. It could be some other annual pass for something else. I look at it in the sense that I have to be willing to spend the money and walk away from it. And what I mean by that, and I will use me as a prime example. In 2024, in February, I had a heart attack. Well, what if I would have bought an annual pass in January and we took a trip in January and went for a few days? And then I had the heart attack in February. What if, health wise, I was not able to go back to Disney the rest of that year? Or what if I lost my job? Or what if there was a circumstance within our family that prevented us from going anymore in 2024? I would have lost out on the park pass, annual pass investment. And so that's why I say if you're going to buy annual passes, whether it's to Disney or another amusement park or your family zoo or whatever it may be, that you have to be willing to walk away from that money, understanding that circumstances over the next 365 days in any given time can change and impact your ability to go. Now, if you're a lifelong Disney fan, you go 2, 3 times a year. Financially, it makes sense for you. You can swing it. I would buy the annual pass. Now, there's also one other factor to consider in. There's always factors, right? I live outside the state of Florida. Let's say I'm a family of four. Pass and credit pass is $1,650 per person times four. And I should have this math done, but bear with me. 26 is did I do that? Is $6,600. So no down payment, no monthly payments can I make as a non-Florida resident. So I have to pony up $6,600 right out of the gate for my annual passes. If I were to take my two trips, even if I did my 2 5 day park hopper trips, which is going to cost me as an individual 1,870, so a couple $100 more than the annual pass. When you book a trip with Disney and you stay on property and buy tickets, it's a package. As a package purchase, regardless of where you live, you pay a $200 deposit and you can make monthly payments, weekly payments, or make no payments and pay it all off 30 days prior to your trip. So for a family of four, maybe I can't afford $6,600 all up front, but booking a trip on property with park hopper passes for a family of four allows me to make my payments over time. As a travel agent, I have clients that have booked trips with me that I manage those payments on their behalf. Maybe they make a payment once a week or every other week on payday, or maybe they do it monthly. It allows them to pay down the balance so that when the balance is due, it's a smaller amount that they owe. They're still paying the same amount as if they paid it all at the very end, but sometimes it's a lot easier to afford it that way. It's the same thing if you're a Florida resident, being able to make those monthly payments on the annual pass just makes it more affordable when you're managing your daily, weekly, or monthly finances for your family. So a lot of different things to factor. If you're interested in an annual pass and you have really no idea what to think about, the finances, the comparisons, different things to factor in, I'd love to work with you and help you out with that. And I'll be very open, transparent, honest. You buy an annual pass, I don't benefit from that, from any commission from Disney. But for me, it's about making Disney a great place for people to go. And if buying an annual pass works for you and makes it a better experience for you and your family, and I can help with that, I'd love to help you. Now, if you want to book a trip, I'd be more than happy to work with you on that. And my goal is to make Disney a fun experience for you and your family. It's not about making money. Yes, I do get a commission from Disney on trips that I book, but it's really about making magic for you and knowing that the experience that you have is a lifetime of memories that you and your family will get to experience. So if you're interested in an annual pass, well, I can't make those purchases on your behalf for an annual pass, but you want to think about all of the different factors, by all means, reach out to me. You can find me on social media. On Facebook, I am at Mike's Magical World Vacations. On Instagram and YouTube, you can find me as Mike_Disney Travel. You can also find me here on the Park Life Podcast channel on YouTube. Our podcasts get posted here on Mondays, and we also post out on Spotify as the Park Life Podcast. In addition, on this YouTube channel, we do weekly travel chats live on Wednesday evenings. Love to have you join us. We answer your questions on there. We talk about different topics. It's a wonderful, engaging opportunity to exchange ideas and thoughts with fellow Disney enthusiasts. So I'd hope that you could join us. If you've not subscribed to this channel, I would love for you to do so. Subscribing on YouTube costs you absolutely nothing, and it helps the channel grow and allows us all to enjoy Disney together. That is it for today. Episode 32 is in the books, annual passes. It's kind of a to be or not to be. It's annual pass or pass. What makes most sense to you and your family financially and park wise? So, love to hear from you. Provide me a comment in the chat, and we will talk to you again next week. And hopefully, you can join us Wednesday night for travel chat. That's it for now. Have a great day and a great week. Goodbye, everybody.